Hello, everybody, and welcome to 2025. This is my first podcast of the year, and I just like to always reflect on the conversations that I've had the previous year and from the lessons that I've learned. I always learn an absolute ton from my guests, and I've effectively tried to reduce it to one lesson per episode because there's literally just so much that I do learn through everything, every single conversation that I have with everybody. And also like to, I guess, choose things that are there for all of us to learn as well and to have a think about. And this is me talking. I've got my notes here, so you'll see my, I guess, me referring to them as well. Um, I wish I had an amazing memory and like photographic memory where I could just sort of look at this and recite it, but that's not necessarily the case. But also conscious of you watching, if you're watching, and I want to make it as genuine and authentic as possible. This is part of one of my growth things for this year is to actually publish a few more videos of just me talking about certain things, just to help me sort of build and grow and just be there, you know, like this real life person trying to help the world and make it a better place. So these are the lessons. I'm going to kind of mention the lesson, who the podcast was with, and just riff about it a little bit. And I hope that you find it nice and useful. Number one was episode 140 with Brad Smith. And the lesson was effectively around removing toxic friends from your life. I think a lot of us have had or might even have toxic friends in our lives. And these are not necessarily serving us. You know, these could be people that constantly talk you down, where, you know, they suck your energy. And effectively, like, you leave them feeling worse than when you actually came into their company, right? So where you owe it to yourself to look at this relationship and ask yourself, do I really want this in my life? You want to be surrounded by people that inspire you, that challenge you, that feed you, you know, that make you feel good. The other thing about this is having tough conversations. So you can really challenge yourself and tell these people how you're feeling and how they make you feel. And effectively, then giving them an opportunity to maybe reply or to respond. Because maybe they are behaving a certain way because of something you did or something that's happening in their lives. So that's another thing to consider when removing people from your life, or toxic people from your life. Don't necessarily just ignore them or completely shut them off. Maybe, you know, use have a tough conversation to help you grow and to understand them a little bit, or at least give them an opportunity to have a think about the way that they're behaving. Very difficult one to do, both of those things. Lesson two was with Gabby Vivas, and this was around mentorship and seeking mentorship in your life. Sometimes these things just happen naturally through the people that come into your life or that you meet randomly. Other times, I think that mentorship should be sought in terms of you as a person. You must go and look for it through people that have the lives you desire, the skills that you desire, or who have just lived a life that you want to kind of live from, or have that experience that you want to learn from. So, you know, mentorship is something that keeps on popping up again and again and again in podcasts, in my life too. I've always been fortunate to have great mentors, and you know, that's been a mix of people coming into my life, but me also seeking it. So, if you are a person seeking it, don't be afraid to go looking for it and asking. If you are a person who sees the I don't know, the fire, and the, I don't know, whatever it is in somebody, that you like, cool, I can probably help this person, then don't be afraid to offer your mentorship as well. We're basically, we're all wired to be here for each other, to help each other. And the better it is for all of us, then the greater the world is. You know what I mean? So yeah, invest in young and enthusiastic talent. And if you are one of the young and enthusiastic ones, go out and seek mentorship. Lesson 3 was from Jeremy Meeks, or Shiver King, as he's known on X. And this is about redirecting an addictive personality. Okay, so if you have an addiction, I really encourage you to listen to the full podcast, because it's a great one, coming from a man who's literally redirected his addictive personality from smoking dope, drinking a lot, etc., to becoming an inspiring guy who basically now puts his addiction into running. So literally, a lot of what this comes down to is redirecting your addictive personality to something better. Okay, so he says, like, you are good at drinking beer, you are good at smoking dope, so you're going to be good at running. Okay, it's literally like a replacement thing. Just redirect what you have to, and go for it. Like, tackle it, let loose, and see what happens. Because you have it in you. You just maybe have been distracted or taken a path that provides you more comfort as opposed to discomfort. And that's actually the place that you're going to grow the most, is when you put yourself in a place of discomfort. So yeah, really important, I guess, realization for people that have addictive personalities. Lesson 4 was with Dr. Robert Lover. And the lesson there was around what is nice guy syndrome. Okay, so don't be fooled by the name. Nice guy syndrome is not necessarily a good thing. You might be a nice guy yourself. You might be surrounded by nice guys. You might be in a relationship with a nice guy. And having these sort of traits reflected on you or reflected back to you is not necessarily comfortable. I encourage anyone to read his book, and to be very sort of honest with yourself, and try and better yourself if you have nice guy traits, so it's not necessarily just for guys, it's also for girls. But primarily, originally, it was around nice guys, because he's a men's coach, right? So where it comes down, he's like, basically, it's a person who usually at a very early age inaccurately internalized the belief, an emotional belief, that they are not okay, right? And it's generally called toxic shame. And toxic shame is an emotional belief, not like an intellectual belief. And the nice guy syndrome is just one of many ways to try and manage those uncomfortable feelings about yourself, and to try prevent things that cause those uncomfortable feelings. And he's like, a nice guy is basically doing two things. Okay, so they're trying to become what he or she believes other people want them to be liked and loved and get their needs met. And nice guys are not necessarily their authentic selves either. They're chameleons, right? So they're thinking, like, what do I have to become to get you to, like, nod your head in agreement with me, or to like me, or to be friends with me, or whatever the case may be. Okay. And the second thing is they try to hide anything about themselves that might get a negative reaction. So, like I said, if you are truly honest with yourself, then some of these things are very uncomfortable to acknowledge. But you do need to have a look into them, and try and just improve them, I guess. So Alex Moore was lesson 5. And this was around how your body stores pain, and also like the mystical powers that people possess to help you identify these things. And unbeknownst to us, right, our body keeps score. There's like literally past traumas and pains and unresolved issues and unhealed experiences that manifest in our bodies as we kind of like get older and we don't resolve them. So like that, back pain you have, the chest pain, tinnitus or whatever in your ears. Uh, these are like possibly due to your body holding on to something, not able to let go. And yeah, there's not always like a physical reason to it. There's like a deeper hormonal, emotional reason to the aches and pains that you feel. You could, I don't know, you could have been angry when you were younger and like you've got pain in your neck or pain in your tummy, or I don't know, maybe you suffer from migraines or something like that. And that's because you were super angry and you haven't dealt with that properly. You might not be super angry now, but um, the emotion is still stored up in you somewhere. So yeah, it's quite a fascinating thing to understand. And there's been many books written about this as well. Um, it could mean that you handle stress badly. Like you just don't know how to sort of tolerate stress that well. And these are things that healers, like in his case it was like a Maori healer, was able to identify in him. Like he went and saw this Maori healer, and the guy said, oh, you've got this, you like, I can see there's probably some pain in your neck, or there's something wrong with your ears. And everything the guy said was like true, and it was based on relationships that had issues in his life, or a couple other things. So yeah, remember that your body keeps score. The next one was with Adam Rossi. This was lesson 6, episode 145, and it's like why we must be altruistic about the next generation. You must realize that the wise words of one person can literally cause a trajectory in your life. Like they can change your life. And as a older person, we must be very conscious, like what we say to somebody and the words that we use, because that can, positively change their lives, but it can also negatively change their lives too. So the wrong interaction, you just have to be very careful. With the right interaction, you have to understand that you can really help a person. So it's also very exciting how there's a lot of people that are altruistic and that they have a ton of faith in the next generation. And I think, the thing is like, what else is there? Like, why would you not be like that? You have to be excited. You have to provide hope and, give opportunity to people that are younger than yourselves. There's another thing that we spoke about. There's also this corrosive idea in society at the moment that like having kids is like not a great thing, or there's like people against families. That's not a good message, or actually good for the planet. Effectively in some countries there's like an issue with population replacement. And if we are going to go down the path of demonizing families and these sort of things, then we're not going to exist in a few I don't know how long, centuries maybe. So very important to be excited about the next generation and help them as much as possible, with whatever means that you might have. Lesson 7 was with Chris Helgeth, also known as the Gas Biz guy on X, and this was around how to keep your kids grounded. And he said one sentence in here, which was, "I'd rather my kids know how to work than to drink margaritas and drive Lamborghinis." And this is coming from a guy who is, affluent and financially successful, right? As an adult, that wasn't the case. He didn't grow up in like a rich family or anything like that. He worked hard and he made his cash, and he's extremely successful and a fantastic guy too. But the reality is that his kids, they for them, their reality is that they've always kind of, had what they wanted really, because Chris has done very well. But how do you pass on values and traits that are sort of intrinsic to you because of how you've grown up, but your kids haven't necessarily had to learn those sort of ways through a bit of difficulty. So he says that you have to make them understand, I guess, the value of money, teach them hard work, but by also showing them hard work, so like they must see you. They must see you, because effectively kids are they're sponges. They follow you. They want to emulate you. So it's good for them to see you doing the hard work in the hard yards, putting in the hard yards. But when it comes to the actual kids, it's about being present in their lives, right? So make sure that you are interested in celebrating their successes, that you show up for them, that you're interested in their lives. There's almost nothing more powerful to for your kid to know that you are there for them, that you've got their back, that you're in their corner, and that you spend time with them and you're present. It's almost like it's intangible to sort of calculate how powerful that is and how that influences their futures. The next lesson, which is lesson 8, which is Chris Berg, episode 147, and this is a very, very important one, especially now. I think we're finding ourselves in a bit of an epidemic, and this is around how to deal with male adult loneliness. And many men, like, we enjoy our independence, sometimes too much. We've also been hardwired to believe that we're capable of pretty much doing anything that we can. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, but we've maybe forgotten a little bit around the importance of community and what we can actually do together, what we can achieve together. And I think for men, it's important to surround yourselves with other men, because, you know, we kind of like big kids, really. We still love roughhousing. We like being competitive with each other. We like talking rubbish, and we like ripping each other off. And that's our way of kind of like bonding and feeling like part of something. And it's an important thing to have that playfulness in your life still. And I guess you only really get that when you are part of a community. Um, Men, we often think we're also like lone wolves, um, and that you might have that element of your personality, and we all do. We like to have time with ourselves, and also, I guess, have time with community. But if you're too much of a lone wolf, then you can put yourself in a bit of a predicament. And that was the case for Chris. Actually, on his 40th birthday, he arranged a party, and then no one showed up, and he said it was one of the saddest days of his life, really. So what he did was, he was like, oh, well, this is not me. Like, it's not like he didn't have mates growing up and stuff. He had just put himself in a weird situation for a few years. So what he started doing was, he started calling his buddies again and having conversations with him, reminiscing about the old times, and just like showing up and being interested in his friends' lives, like asking them questions and stuff. And then that then led to flying to his friends, to going to see them, even if it was just for a day, or driving to them to see them, and then arranging like reunions, like with a few guys, just for a night. And that was like, just that was how he sort of overcame his loneliness. And now he has a group of buddies that they're all very close again, and he can call on anybody. So don't let loneliness get the better of you, especially as a man, because it's a deep dark hole and can lead to things like depression and suicide. And we don't need that in the world. We've got enough suffering. So yeah, very important one. Lesson 9 was with Eric Kaiser, and this was around how life changing fatherhood is on you as a man. And he's like, having a child all of a sudden makes you aware of your own childhood, and in ways that you kind of never remembered. You start thinking back to the cool things that you used to do, to the games you used to play, but also, I think, to things like how your parents were, the decisions that they made, the things that they did. Um, and effectively, fatherhood is like a firmware upgrade. You start seeing the world in a different light. You start feeling things very differently. It becomes important, like how your kids perceive you. So therefore, like what you do, how you lead them, how you show them what life is about, the sense of adventure that you give them, the sense of independence that you provide, the resilience that you help them build, etc., etc. So, you also realize that actually, before you had kids, life was actually a chill, and you maybe wasting a lot of time, because after you have kids, you time becomes much more, become much more aware of time, because one, you probably have less because you're a father and you're looking after your kids, and um, you're wanting to spend time with them. But also, you start realizing how short time is, and you want to make the most of it. So yeah, just yeah, lots of realizations, I guess, when you become a father. You also kind of realize a little bit that you're kind of narcissistic with your own life as a single person or person without kids, and you're effectively sort of retract from that and realize that there's more purpose to what it is that you are doing on this earth and what it is that you're providing, and that your family becomes your personal priority. So yeah, that's another great thing to kind of be aware of, and a good lesson. So number 10 was with Case Bradford, and this is the importance of playfulness and laughter, right? So it seems like we're living in a time where people have like forgotten how to have fun in a way. The world seems very serious and doom and gloom and that sort of stuff. And I think people forget like how little time we actually have on this planet and how quick life goes. There's also maybe some other factors around why we are less playful and don't laugh as much and have as much fun. And that's, people are lacking community. They're feeling isolated, and sometimes people just feel for what other people think, and it stops you from having fun. You could also have like a dysregulated nervous system, and that means you're stuck in fight or flight mode. And then the older you get, the more responsibility you have. So your worries increase, and which then, if you whatever you spend your time on, I guess you're taking away from something else. So if you're spending more time worrying, means you have less time to have fun and to laugh and to be playful. So it's some of it is like just a natural part of the way we become as growing older. But it doesn't mean that you can't be conscious of it, and you can't go, okay, cool, I'm not going to worry about this because there's nothing I can do about it. So let me just go and flip and have as much fun as I possibly can. And then I guess the overwhelm of information that's currently out there, and then the characteristic of information. The news cycle is not exactly uh, an exciting, well, maybe it is exciting, but it's not like a positive cycle to get yourself stuck into. So we just have to be conscious of what we put into our bodies, and we have to just remind ourselves daily that one of the foundations of a high quality life is tapping into your inner child, and to playfulness. And it's also a key for your overall mental health. Number 11 is with John Park, and yeah, this was a very cool episode. This was the lesson is around the mental preparation of an Olympic athlete. We specifically spoke about swimming because he was a competitive swimmer, and like swimming is, if you've been a swimmer, you'll kind of, this will make more sense. There's a form of camaraderie that you build with your swimming mates, and a bond that kind of like never disappears. And the training and continuous laps when you're a youngster like builds a real discipline in you, and that discipline sort of follows you through life a lot of the time, and you're able to apply that discipline to many other parts of your life, or events in your life. And for John, he was also very fortunate. His dad is Reg Park, who was like an iconic person, especially in the bodybuilding world. And his dad had competed at the top level, so he had a way with helping John sort of tap into that winning mindset, and he knew what to say depending on the situation, like that John was in to help him find clarity, to put in like I guess a winning strategy for his swimming races, and to shave off those like marginal milliseconds, which meant like the difference between first place and third place. So having somebody in your corner that is a coach or a teacher or your dad or your mom or whoever it is that understands how important mindset is when it comes to competing at the top level is gonna separate you from everybody else. Yeah, that's just we just have to be aware that your mindset is pretty much everything when it comes to um, finding the next level or getting to the next level. Lesson 12 was with Malchus Fat, and this was a great lesson. I think most people are maybe not aware, but like there's four main issues with modern footwear. Many people have not considered how unnatural modern shoes are and like the health consequences that result due to the lack of movement that modern shoes provide. So there's four main issues. Like you have the shape of the toe box. Okay, they're generally when you look at your foot, it's kind of like the widest near the toes, but shoes are not shaped that way. Your shoes are kind of like end up being semi pointy at the top, and that means that your toes squish together, and your big toe and your pinky that they kind of misalign, and that misalignment sort of cascades up through your body, often resulting in like hip issues or back pain or knee issues and stuff. So that's the first issue. The second issue is sole stiffness. So you'll know like often soles prevent bending, especially like smart shoes. And that's like essential for walking gait, is to be able to have a bit of bendiness in your shoes. And if you don't have that, like you you basically almost putting your foot to sleep. So, if your feet can't move, if your toes can't move as they should, yeah, you're walking, but your foot's kind of asleep. Then number three was the heel to toe drop, right? So, most shoes have heels these days, especially ladies, of course, with high heels. And that mimics like walking downhill, placing pressure on your forefoot. But the body compensates for that by, you know, putting like other like correct overcorrecting effectively. And then that leads to other structural like sort of compensations in your body, and you don't realize it maybe at the time, but these lead to other ailments, etc. When you get older, especially. And then just the lack of natural movement in shoes. So to compensate in the shoes for the heel, they put a toe spring in, so that it's more natural. But it's weird. It's like two negatives. They definitely don't make a positive. And that upward angle at the front of the show the shoe, it also like it prevents your foot from relaxing and effectively causing long-term issues, because like the fascia like under your foot is like in a stretched position all day. So modern shoes, like we really need to look into them. There are some great companies like his out there that are making shoes just more wearable and more comfortable and more natural. And yeah, if you've got issues, it could be because of the shoes that you wear. So 13 was with Adam Lane Smith. And this one I think is super powerful. It's right. The essential four levels of trust for a deep relationship. And yeah, you can, once again, this is a hard one to have reflected back on you. It is also ones that you might not even realize why your relationships suck, why you have a lot of fighting in your relationship, why there's a lot of like maybe trust issues, or I don't know, things are just not solid. You know what I mean? And this was really like a cool one for me to um, to just understand, that there are these four levels of trust, because you can relate them to your own relationship and see where you're going wrong effectively. So the first one was around your partner is consistent and self-policing with like an explicit code of conduct or behavior or honor, and you know what that is, and like you sort of able to track it just through the way they behave, and like, are they consistent with their behavior? Are they the same person around their friends and their family, their colleagues? Are they the same person under stress, etc.? This provides a lot of trust in a relationship, if you can kind of like get that right. Number two was like, does your partner have a long-term goal, right? And if they deviate from that goal, do they sort of like come back to it and get back on track? So often in relationships, especially on the woman's side of things, they'll tie into the vision they say that a man provides, and a lot of the time the man deviates from that and gets comfortable and will find comfort in boozing and yeah, other bad habits. And then because the vision has kind of changed, the his partner will sort of start feeling, like, okay, cool, maybe this is not the man for me. So you always need to remember that. What is my long-term goal? What is the vision I'm providing? Am I sticking to it? Because this all helps with keeping the trust and the bond going strong. And is there the third one is like, is there mutual acceptance, right? So your partner trusts you because you take ownership for your shortcomings, and you try to improve them. You try to fix them and keep growing through them. You also don't get defensive if your partner points something out to you, as long as they point it out in the right way. They're not like horrible or critical or whatever. But if they are trying to tell you something, it's probably for the benefit of both of you, and it's up to you to go, okay, hey, cool, thanks for telling me, I'm going to fix that. Number 4 is around mutual fulfillment, right? So it's being able to go to your spouse or partner and say, I want to be the best spouse to you that I possibly can. And this is super, super difficult, right? So you have to ask them questions, right? Like what, why, and how. That's his method. So he's like, what are 2 or 3 things you need from me? Okay. Why are these important so that I can understand you? And how often do you need them so that you feel loved? I can probably guarantee that almost none of us ever do this really. And yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult sometimes hearing these things. But if we want a strong, fulfilling, long, deep relationship, these 4 levels of trust, I think, are amazing to implement and to think about. So thank you, Adam. Number 14 was with Amanda Carniero. These are lifelong impacts from an abusive alcoholic father. It could be mom as well, but in her case, it was her dad. So, she said, imagine one of your parents walks into the house and you didn't know how that was going to go. You didn't know the state that they were going to be in. I mean, that causes enough anxiety in the best of circumstances if they're not alcoholic. But imagine when they are alcoholic, because they're probably like comatose and they can't even communicate. Or you might be extra fearful because they come in and you're scared that they might abuse you physically, verbally, and they could be violent as well, which will scare the living daylights out of anybody. So, you know, coping with those distractions, like people deal with them differently. And in Amanda's case, it was excessive eating. And other people might, I don't know, spend a lot of time away from home, or, binge digitally, and just be distracted that way to kind of manage the pain that is caused by these abusive people. But often also what that results in is you like pushing down your feelings, right? So to avoid those feelings that you feel. And that, that experience and that process creates anxiety and trauma, and also leads to maybe distrust in other relationships, especially later on in your life. But yeah, it's very difficult. It can cause like a dysregulated relationship with yourself for sure, but also maybe with other people too. But in some ways, it does serve you positively. If you have to try add a silver lining to it. So in Amanda's case, it's made her hyper vigilant of like other people, in terms of how they were feeling. So she was able to sort of tap into that and help other people. And also she became a very empathetic person, so that doesn't necessarily always serve you super well, but you are more in tune with other people and how they're feeling. Number 15 is Jordan Herbs, which was episode 154. And this is him breaking and exploring his victim mindset. And I think a lot of people seem to suffer from a victim mindset. And, one of the things that he mentioned was there seems to have been a bit of like a upward trend in the graph from the 80s, like, and he doesn't know if there was something that happened or, whatever, but victimhood seems to have been encouraged a little bit more. And, yeah, I don't know, perhaps that generation, which is also me, we were coddled a little bit too much. And yeah, no one wants to necessarily take responsibility. People are looking for quick wins. and we don't necessarily know how to fend for ourselves. So yeah, that creates all of that creates a victim mindset, like, why is this happening to me, etc., etc. And there's different ways of exploring this, and it's not easy, right, to overcome a victim mindset. Like, probably most people, they never want to actually admit that they're a victim, and they never even have the self-awareness to understand that they are a victim either. For him, there's different processes for different people, and there's different stages and stuff. And I think there's, for him, the thing that kind of broke it for him was an ayahuasca experience, and it allowed him to have visions or visualize certain things, and experience things that happened in his past, and that then yeah, literally gave him this sort of profound change. And a few months after that, he was looking at life in a different way. So we have to understand, if you have a victim mindset, it's really not serving you. You're not seeing the world in 3D. You're missing out on a ton of opportunities, and what you pay attention to expands. And that means that if you are a victim, it's normally a deep, dark black hole, and that's not a place you really want to be. So none of these things are easy to overcome, but they're essential if you want to live like a fruitful, colorful, happy kind of life. Episode 155. This is lesson 16 with Brent, and yeah, this was a toughie in terms of, like, just listening to the pain and suffering that Brent went through as a youngster. And the lesson is preventing the deep cycle of childhood abuse and trauma, that yeah, and not passing it on to your kids. So what happened to him and to many other people in terms of abuse is like unfathomable to me. I just have no idea what it must have been like, and just how terrible it must be. He was brought up by a single mother. He was raped when he was 8. But the worst of all was his stepdad, and the way his stepdad treated him. Every single day of his life, he was told, "You're worthless. You're going to amount to nothing. You're going to go to prison, etc., etc." So imagine that is the information that you fed, as a young kid. Like, and he says at the age of 50, he's still struggling to kind of, sort of unwind a lot of that damage. But his main concern, and this is what I hugely commend him for, and it's not even a concern of his; it's something that he actively does. Is he doesn't project this forward onto his own kids, and he totally wants to interrupt and not perpetuate the cycle. And for me, that like takes a tremendous amount of strength, and yeah, uh, highly respectful, because not many people get into that situation where they don't carry these sort of things on. Number 17 was with Amory Smuts, and this is around why do women live in fear? And yeah, it's particularly this started when we spoke about like motherhood, and she says, like, nothing can prepare a woman for the fear that develops in their life. And I guess you can maybe also say protectiveness. So she says, you try to cover your children and keep them safe from people, the traffic, the bees in the garden. Everything becomes a threat. And the other thing that we also mentioned was girls/women generally seem to spend a bit more time on social media than men. And there's obviously a lot of negative stuff that goes on when you use social media, and you're basically inviting those like negative comments, distasteful comments, sometimes like vulgar, racist, sexist, etc., things into your own house, because you're there scrolling on your phone, and that just increases your fear. Men and women are wired very differently, and I think women probably take that stuff more to heart because they're a bit more emotional, and it's just the way that we're wired. There's a lady called Teal Swan who talks about how the number one thing that men don't understand about women is the fear that they live in. And there's various reasons for that, and I think it, like, this can also sometimes cause a lot of conflict in people's lives, sorry, in people's relationships, because men don't understand this about women. And but it's up to us as men to to try and understand it, and then to remember our role as like protector and confidant, and like providing comfort and reassurance to the woman in our lives. Lesson 18 was with Nikki Truesdell, and this is around homeschooling, right? So it was a fascinating podcast on homeschooling. Then the lesson is homeschooled kids have no socialization issues. So the number one question that people always seem to ask around homeschooling is like, how do you socialize your kids? Like because they're obviously not going to go to school with tons of people, and they're getting taught at home. So it's a legitimate concern, I think. And the other thing around homeschooling is like is booming at the moment. So this is a hot topic, and we want to make sure that our kids are socialized and that they have community, because that's one of the main foundations and pillars of life. And yeah, just an important topic to talk about. Um, she says that often they're so busy socializing and doing activities that they'll come home exhausted, which is not maybe necessarily always the case for kids that's in the classroom all day. They specifically socialize, by going to church. They have other homeschool cooperatives where families get together, different parents teach different subjects. They also do all the same activities in terms of like sports and stuff as other school kids do. That's just because they've also got more time to do these things. And they also have more time for things like hobbies, and hobbies require a lot of brain energy, and often hobbies you do with other people too. So yeah, they get the socialization there, and then they also they as soon as they're old enough, homeschool kids generally get sort of part-time jobs because they have more time in their hands as well. And the other thing around socialization is they are surrounded by adults more, because just of the nature of being at home. You get to say hello to the trash truck guy and the Amazon delivery guy, and you probably go to your parents to the shops a bit too much, so you get to see the person at the checkout counter. And that really helps with kids being around adults. It helps with their communication, with their body language, with eye contact, confidence, etc. Homeschool kids probably get to see their grandparents more. They get to travel more and go on more adventures because they're not necessarily tied down by that strict structure and of schooling and holidays and all those sort of things. So she basically says socialization is not an issue, and another issue with actually kids in schools is socialization has changed so much now, where they're effectively social through their phones, so they're looking at their phones and they're talking to each other. And let's be honest, that's not normal. And there's a sort of big epidemic in schools with kids suffering from depression and being suicidal, and that's just not normal. And I think a lot of that comes down to how kids are being social in schools. So there's a big problem there, and it needs to be looked into. So yeah, very, very cool things to know if you're planning on homeschooling your kids. Number 19 was with Tom Palladino, and this was a really interesting podcast. So the lesson is free wireless energy scalable, or is it actually a myth? So many pyramids, obelisks have been shown to collect scalar energy. Many geometric forms, even cathedrals, are passive batteries of scalar energy, which is energy from the sun and stars, right? So the ancient people somehow were aware of this and used it, but we, in our modern times, seem to have forgotten. It's not mainstream anymore. Nikola Tesla was actually the first person to develop instruments that could control scalar energy, and he developed two sites, one in Colorado and one in New York, and both of those installations were able to broadcast wireless energy. Crazy, which is energy that he somehow manifested from the sun. So yeah, this is the energy industry is something that's waiting to be disrupted. That's for sure. It's a $10 trillion industry, and it's not necessarily good for the environment. It pollutes the environment in many ways. It's causes a lot of deaths. It's dangerous to distribute it. So something is aloof in terms of why we are not told about wireless energy. And it might sound a bit sort of conspiratorial, but there's enough people out there that are posting things online now that are testing wireless energy, that are showing you how it works, for us to believe that there's actually something out there. And it's a quite an exciting thing to think about, if this is actually a possibility. Number 20 was with Luis Riencho, and this was about AI, and that, by using AI, you're effectively being yourself on steroids. And, AI is definitely probably the most disruptive industry almost ever. It's obviously relative to the time that we're living in, but if you're not using it now, you're probably going to get left behind. He used AI basically to help him learn English. He used ChatGPT to create a game and to teach him English words every single day, but also to correct him if he said things incorrectly. And, imagine that just at the at your fingertips. Basically, you're able to create something that teaches you a new language, which is pretty incredible. And when it comes to like creativity, like you might think it sort of destroys creativity, but actually there's an element where it sort of enhances creativity, so and even imagination. So he used once again AI, like different software platforms, to create stories with his daughter, and they would come up with stories and imagery and narration and all these sort of things, visuals. And they now have these sort of storybooks that they can watch, but they also print it out. And that's also a nice way to get your kids sort of involved in technology, even though there's a lot of negative sides of technology. So that was really cool. And then I guess just in general, like, content creation, AI is like amazing to summarize things. It's amazing to create things. It's amazing to generate ideas, to even expand on ideas. And it happens in a matter of seconds and not like hours, days, years. So we're super fortunate that we have that. Business efficiency, it's really, really powerful. Things that took ages, AI can now do once again in split seconds, which means that it's good from a business perspective because you're able to focus on things that are important for the growth of the company, for the branding of a company, for the customer engagement, etc., etc. So yeah, lots of exciting things around AI if used correctly, and we just need to kind of make the most of it, especially in these early days, right? The next one, lesson 21, is with Jasper Machogu, really cool guy based in Kenya, and connected well with Jasper, and this one was around environmental issues destroying livelihoods of many Africans. And I think he says, like, look, you guys in the West, you take so many things for granted. You have tap water, you have electricity at the flip of a switch, you have internet, you have washing machines, dishwashers, lighting in your house. He's like, we have none of that really. In Kisii, where he's from in Kenya, that people sometimes have to wake up at 3 a.m. to go join a 3-hour queue to collect a 20 liter bucket of water, which is, it's unfathomable to us. We just turn on our tap and we have everything there in an instant. There's people that have lived in his little village that don't have electricity, that have lived next to an electricity pole for their whole lives, but they don't have the money. They can't afford to have their house connected to electricity. And that sort of stuff does nothing for the development of people at all. Like you really on the back foot. So yeah, the other thing we spoke about was actually like, water and the distribution of water through like pipes was one of the main reasons that disease sort of reduced back in the day, whenever it was the early 1900s, 1800s. And like these guys still suffer from that because they don't have it, and even from like they have issues with dirty cooking effectively because people still cook with wood fires in houses that don't have chimneys, and that causes tons of diseases, respiratory diseases, and other issues and fatalities too. So yeah, we literally have no idea how lucky we are, and we need to somehow work out a way to balance all these things out in the world, to just to help people that are poor and in these developing countries. The technology is there, the availability is there. It's just somehow, we're not we're not doing well enough as a species to find that sort of balance and give people these opportunities. Lesson 22 is with Kevin Bell, and this is a cool one. And yeah, I really like Kevin, such a great guy. It's showing up with big dad energy. Now, yeah, something changes when you become a father, and yeah, a few things become realizations in your life. Like how fast time goes, and that you now have to be like super engaged and present and present in your family interactions. And one of those things is around big dad energy. I feel that's like, yeah, you have a responsibility as a dad, like when you come home from work, to go, okay, cool, give yourself like a few minutes, whatever it is, to go, okay, cool. I've got these kids at home that they're super excited to see me. I need to show up with even a better energy, more enthusiastic than them, because that's going to make our evenings rocking and them to just be really excited. And there's something very powerful about somebody showing up with positive, good energy in your life in different moments. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be just when you come home with your kids, but just be conscious of it with all your interactions, because the way you show up determines how, I guess, a interaction sort of ends up. So big dad energy for the win, everybody. Number 23 is with Jenny Gao. And this was the life changing impact of after suffering a stroke. So, can you imagine as an adult having to learn to read, write, speak again, especially if your job is actually, speaking as a radio broadcast, as a TV host? It's a very tough mountain to climb. And when she left hospital, she was struggling to say any words. When she did leave, when she was discharged, they gave her, a bundle of papers saying, "Yeah, you need to write this stuff down. You need to say these things. You need to recreate your neurological pathways." She was very fortunate because they identified her stroke early, and that's not always the case for everybody. So she was able to get the right, surgery done early, and she's making like a fighting recovery, doing super well. And the cool thing was her daughter rallied around her and she helped her with all this homework. They did stuff together. They spent more time together, and it motivated Jenny to have her daughter there, and her husband, of course. But her daughter motivated her to show up every day, to do something every single day, as opposed to sort of feeling sorry for herself and lying in bed and thinking, yeah, I kind of need to recover slowly and these sort of things. But that's actually not the way to recover in many instances. Recovery needs to be active, not passive. And also, I guess one of her biggest battles about having a stroke is that her life will never be the same. But she can do everything possible to kind of get there. But the silver lining is that it made her reflect on her life and realize maybe she was trying to do too much too quickly, and now her life has slowed down a little bit in a good way. And also that she has another sense of purpose besides being a mom and a broadcast host, that she's able to share information and helpful, I guess, education on strokes and stroke recovery. So there's always a silver lining. And then my last one was with Vicky, and Vicky's an AI avatar. I really wanted to, yeah, I guess the lesson is that like the AI is here. The simulation is feeling real now, but the opportunities are endless if you use it correctly. In this particular podcast, I tried to test her as much as possible to see if she could sort of change her thinking, if she could think on the go, and also just provide her with difficult situations to just understand, like, and see if she could think quickly and yeah, just provide different perspectives. And it was really, really fascinating actually seeing it live and witnessing it. Her voice was quite robotic, but that's not the case for all of AI generated voices. A lot of them sound like indistinguishable from normal voices. And yeah, it's really fascinating what you can do. And once again, you can use these things to learn and to educate yourself. And yeah, I just encourage you to sort of start using this software and technology as quickly as you can, in a positive way as possible. to improve you and to make you just a better person and more in tune with what's going on in the world. Anyway, that's it. I've spoken a lot here. Hopefully you've picked up one or two cool things to think about for yourself. And I've enjoyed this actually. Like it's nice riffing a bit, also having a bit of a structure to it. And I want to do more of these and provide more value in different ways that I can. And I just wish everyone an amazing 2025. And let's just get after it. Cheers.